Domestic violence has become an epidemic in America today, especially with the recent media outburst of the Baltimore Ravens running back, Ray Rice, and his recent incident with his wife, Janae. Since the start of the 2013 season, Ray Rice has been arrested for battery of his wife, Janae. Last week, a video of the incident went viral, which caused women of social media to take it by storm, with the trending hashtag #WhyIStayed. These young women are promoting their stories and encouraging other young women of domestic violence to come forward with their stories and seek help. Domestic violence is the intimidation, physical, and emotional abuse. An estimated 85% of women aged 20 to 24 are victims of sexual abuse. This is simply an estimate because many reports of domestic violence do not become reported to the police. In order to understand how severe the outburst of the Baltimore Ravens running back has become, we must first understand what domestic abuse is, and then we must understand the different types of abuse that fall under the umbrella of domestic violence. And third, we must learn about the NFL's part and how they are educating players on domestic violence to prevent this from happening in the future. Domestic violence is also called intimate partner violence, which is also called IPV. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention defines IPV as physical or sexual or psychological harm by another partner. 1 in 4 women are victims of this crime, and 1 in 7 men. 6 NFL players have recently been arrested due to IPV, and also with Ray Rice, including Adrian Peterson. Teresa Walker is the author of the article, Advocates Want to See NFL Action on Domestic Violence. In her article, she states that 2 senators wrote Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, a letter stating that he needs to further discipline Rice instead of just suspending and fining him. Since the incident, Roger Goodell had taken a week off of hiatus and came back this week. He has since banned Ray Rice from the NFL and fined him over $500,000. He is not allowed to play professional football in the United States or even in Canada. In a recent interview with ESPN, Ray Rice had claimed his actions as inexcusable, and he wants to better himself for his 2-year-old daughter. Since Google is a real thing, in a few years she can even find out how the incident went down and lower her relationship with her father. Sexual abuse is also known as rape, and it is unwanted sexual contact. While it doesn't always lead to rape, it can just lead to unwanted touching by another partner. According to RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, RAIN, 28% of the sexually abused are intimate partners. Next, we will learn about the emotional or psychological violence. Emotional abuse includes verbal exchanges including blaming, shaming, and humiliation. The partner inflicting the pain on the victim also uses manipulation to think that the punishment is the victim's fault. Domestic violence is never the victim's fault. Physical abuse, which is the most common, especially today with the NFL, it involves punching, kicking, or battery of an intimate partner. This is the most common form of abuse in the United States. Ray Rice used this kind of violence on his wife when he knocked her out in an elevator and was videoed dragging her unconscious body out of it. The NFL has recently been seen as too violent. In an article in Junior Scholastic, Is Football Too Violent?, a middle schooler, Sean Thorpe, says that football has become too violent because they like the attention of the hard hits, especially in big football games like playoffs or the Super Bowl. Since January of 2000, 77 players have been involved in domestic violence and have been fined or suspended by the NFL. Ray Rice is not the only player to be banned from the NFL. Denver Knicks wrote the article, NFL to partner with domestic violence groups. In his article, he states that the NFL and Roger Goodell are giving back to many domestic violence support groups, especially for women. They are offering $25 full-time advocates allowing 750 more calls a day. Goodell is also developing a program that educates players on domestic violence to prevent this from happening in the future. Laura Sterczewski from NPR, and also author of the article Training NFL Players, she interviewed Richard Jellies, who is a professor at a university in Pittsburgh. He states that football isn't the most violent, and that we should be looking at wrestlers or hockey players, since we all know the old joke, I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out. He's in a case study, he researched men in the Army, both the fighters and the supply workers, and his conclusion was that he found that there were more cases of domestic violence within the supply merchants rather than the actual fighters. He also states that it's not the training. He says that it's also not the career that is violent, but it is the training to be too violent, and that the NFL can help this with their training. Domestic violence is an epidemic. Many victims never report the crime because they are too embarrassed or afraid that they will get hurt again. Taking Ray Rice into consideration, he will never play professional football again. Roger Goodell is looking into repairing the damages done by the NFL, since he didn't immediately ban Ray Rice from the NFL. For now, young women who are victims of domestic violence have found comfort in social media and wish to educate others on their struggle with domestic violence and a way to get out of it. Education on domestic violence can change and save lives. Education on domestic violence can change and save lives, especially with the recent knowledge of the NFL and its part in domestic violence. Many young women and men that have suffered from domestic violence will suffer forever. And you think that physical abuse will stay. If they suffered from physical abuse, they will suffer scars and bruises. However, that's not always the case. Emotionally abused can suffer just as deeply and for a long period of time. Janae Rice has since recovered from her injuries, and they are still together, unfortunately. Educating ourselves on domestic violence is important to our lives today. Knowing the signs and different types of domestic violence can help save your life or someone else's life. It is also important to know different support groups and hotlines that you can call or reach out to in order to seek help. Many young women that have suffered from domestic violence are recovering today with the help of support from friends and family. I encourage everyone that thinks that someone they know is suffering from domestic violence to help them reach out and seek help from trained professionals.
Hey.
Oh,